Joker 2? More like Joker poo. More like Joker the joke's on you for seeing this. In case somehow you don't know any of the, let's say, drama around this movie, you should count yourself lucky. But I'm gonna recap everything you should know, plus my personal thoughts on Joker folie à deux, or as the people have dubbed it, Joker folie à poo. I really liked the first Joker. It was so unexpected to have the combination of the director of the Hangover series plus Joaquin Phoenix in an overly grounded amalgamation of Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. Some people hate this movie because it's very surface level and takes a lot of inspiration from better movies. Once you peel away the layers of beautiful cinematography and the soundtrack, you're left with the message of treating people with mental illness badly is not good, or we should be more aware of people with mental illness. So I get the flaws, but boy do I still really like it. The story of Arthur was not one I thought needed to be continued. There was something special about the director, Todd Phillips, not wanting or not planning on doing a sequel in a world where everything has a sequel. But unfortunately for Todd, he made a movie that grossed over $1 billion, became the highest grossing R-rated movie for a while, and created an uncontrollable cultural craze with people dressing up as the Joker and recreating moments from the movie. Now I say unfortunate because Todd really hates the people who are obsessed over his movie, which I think is such a weird attitude to have, to hate the people who made you successful. But why am I saying he hates his fans and it's unfortunate that it got so much unforeseen success? Because of course the studio wants to have more success, and that means a sequel, baby. They probably offered Todd and Joaquin so much money that it seemed stupid to say no, no matter how creatively dumb it would be. So Todd has to figure out how to create a sequel to a story that already had an ending, and also make the most expensive middle finger in cinematic history. When a person makes such a successful movie, usually the studio gives that director a lot more creative freedom because they want to replicate the first one. After Christopher Nolan made the Dark Knight trilogy, they said he could make whatever movie he wanted next, and they would fund it. That's because they trusted him to make a good movie, trusted that he would want to make a good movie, because filmmaking is his job. Why wouldn't he want to make a good movie? I remember hearing something about him not letting the studio read the script for Tenet. He was just like, yeah, I'm going to make this and it's going to be too confusing for your little brains to understand, so I'm not going to waste time explaining it. And they were just like, yeah, okay, because it's Nolan. But Todd is different. He looked at this opportunity to undo everything he did with the character in the first one. He seemed to want to piss people off. The first thing we heard about this was that it was a musical. I was like, okay, if they think that'll work, I'll trust him. I wouldn't want it to be musical, but okay. And the next news was that it was a jukebox musical, which means they weren't making original music. They were singing other people's songs the whole movie. And then after that news, they stopped mentioning anything about it being a musical in any of the marketing. You can't even really tell when the first trailer came out. A few people remembered that it was a musical, but the normal theater goer had no idea. Lady Gaga was announced to be in it as Harley Quinn, and I thought that was a great idea. I knew it was a musical and figured it would work. But now we have all this information like Gaga was signed to the movie before the script was made. There was no test screenings because they didn't want to spoil that ending. This was the lowest cinema score, getting worse than Madam Web and Morbius. Its budget went from $50 million for the first one to $250 million for the second. That means this movie is going to lose so much money. Plus, the name for this is really pretentious. Folie à deux means madness of two. I think it's pretentious on purpose. I think Todd Phillips purposefully sabotaged this project, and everything I hear about this disaster cements it in my mind. People don't like musicals. Okay, let's make it a musical. Let's give it a dumb, pretentious title just because we can. And that title is stupid because it's a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. Harley Quinn is in it for like 30 minutes. And where is Todd Phillips during the release and press tour of his movie? Hiding away on a remote ranch with no internet access, so the mobs and droves of torch-holding angry fans can't reach him, metaphorically of course. Onto the movie itself, it starts with Arthur in Arkham. He meets Harley and they fall in love. Then the second half of the movie, it turns into a courtroom drama, which isn't even dramatic because it's just people from the first movie recapping the first one. But it isn't interesting to us because we know Arthur doesn't have multiple personalities. We know who he is. There's one good scene with the little dude and that's it. And then it just ends with Arthur not wanting to be the Joker or the head of his movement, which is what was built up in the first one. It ends with them back in Arkham exactly where the movie started. It feels like a pointless and empty circle. Now that recap was pretty quick, and that's because a lot of the runtime is filled with musical numbers, which I'll talk about more in a second. What I did like about this movie movie was the cinematography. I'm pretty sure it's the same DP as the first, and he does an amazing job. He's the only reason why this movie is watchable. I liked the pretentious Harvey Dent that was included in this. I enjoyed how smug he was. Lady Gaga was great in the tiny amount of the movie she was in, even though her character was completely wasted. Joaquin Phoenix could have really phoned it in for his performance, but I feel like his acting was just as good as the first one. Now with the negative stuff, which is the majority, I hated the story they went with in pretty much every creative decision. Whenever people are just having conversations, they randomly break out in song for no reason other than, oh wait, this is a musical, so we have to. The only time we see Arthur as the Joker in his Joker outfit is when we have random musical numbers. They all take place in his head and don't actually happen to progress the story, which is how musicals are actually supposed to do it. So the movie just pauses while we watch a musical number directed by a dude who's never directed a musical number before. It just felt like Todd was saying, you liked the first one so much you thought Joker was so cool? Well, guess what? Spoiler alert, Arthur isn't even the real Joker. It's actually this background character who shanks Arthur to death at the very end. As I stared into Arthur's dead and lifeless eyes when it fades to black and the credits roll, I said screw that and sat there for a long time feeling empty and wondering why I sat through all of this. There's even a scene where Arthur is running away from a guy dressed in his exact Joker outfit. You can see this a few different ways, but as I sat in the theater, it felt like a metaphor for Todd running away from the success of the first Joker. Or it's Arthur running away from who people want him to be as the Joker. Joker Folie is a disaster that sets out to do nothing but to ruin the first one for the fans with a terrible story that drags out and feels utterly boring and pointless to sit through. If you're going to say screw you to your fans in a money-hungry studio, at least have fun with it, dude. Besides breathtaking visuals, there are very few redeeming factors that make this movie worth watching. Save your money and watch the first Joker instead. Or literally anything else. 1 star.